Hello, I'm Robert Jeffrey, and today we're going to learn about Robert Gagne and his approach to instructional design. So just who is Robert Gagne? Well, he was an American educational psychologist, born in 1916 and died in 2002. He earned his bachelor's from Yale in 1937 and a PhD from Brown University in experimental psychology in 1940. He held positions at several prominent universities between 1940 and 1985, was the head of research for the American Institute for Research from 1962 to 66, held multiple positions, and conducted several studies for the military, beginning in World War II and continuing on through 1958. Finally, towards the end of his career, he was a National Research Council Senior Fellow at the Air Force's Armstrong Laboratories from 1990 to 91. Gagne developed an ideology of an instructional design based on 3 areas: 5 categories of learning, 9 events of instruction, and 8 conditions of learning. There are 5 types of learning, also called categories of performance. The first is verbal information. This is information such as laws, facts, places, and names. Learning strategies used to improve verbal information provide cues for the learner to connect with previously learned knowledge and are enhanced by activities like organizing, elaborating, or rehearsing exercises. Next is the intellectual skills. This is the ability of learners to follow procedures and include the skills of discrimination, the capacity to classify objects by one or more characteristics, concrete concept, the capacity to identify objects based on their unique characteristics like shape or color, defined concept, capacity to demonstrate an understanding of abstract objects or ideas, rule, the ability to make connections between concepts and objects, and problem solving, the ability to integrate multiple rules to find solutions to problems. Next is the cognitive strategies, the ability of breaking problems down into smaller components to be analyzed or solved, and then returning to solve the overall problem with this new information. The next area is motor skills. These are physical actions, such as inserting contact lenses, skiing, dancing, or writing. Prior learning, and especially practice, will help improve this ability. Finally, attitude. This is a person's mental state which, in some situations, can have an influence on one's actions and decisions. It takes conscious effort to change one's attitude. Although it is based largely on an individual's personal beliefs and values and emotions, having a mentor or role model can greatly help in improving this area. According to Gagne, the 9 events to instruction are all required for effective learning. The order may vary from time to time, but all 9 steps must be present. First, gain attention by starting with a statistic, a question, a famous quote, or some other method of reeling the student's attention in. Second, announce the objectives for the lesson, either by listing them or displaying them where all students can access them. Third, stimulate the recall of prior learned and relevant knowledge, such as reviewing pertinent building blocks. For example, before teaching long multiplication, review how addition relates to multiplication. Fourth, present the content of the lesson. This may be done via a lecture, a guided discussion, guest speakers, the use of multimedia, or many other available strategies. Fifth, provide guidance on exercises that will help the students internalize the new content, such as using chunking, metaphors, mnemonics, rehearsals, or encoding exercises. Sixth, elicit performance by giving the students an opportunity to demonstrate their knowledge absorption, such as doing math problems on the board, playing a section of music being focused on, or reciting a poem they've written in class. Seventh, provide feedback that is both honest and constructive. Providing the students with this information will enable them to improve their performances. Eighth, Assess the final performances based on the objectives that were previously announced. Ninth, put the student in a transfer situation or similar case, such as doing new math problems of the same type that was covered during the lesson. The final area of Gagne's concept are the 8 conditions of learning. These conditions must be learned in order, and each one must be mastered before moving on to the next. The first condition is signal learning. This is the same thing as classical conditioning. This is the Pavlov was researching when he conditioned dogs with a bell at dinner time. The end goal is the modification of one's reflexive actions. The second condition is stimulus response learning, otherwise known as operant conditioning. It's similar to classical conditioning, but it goes further. Instead of just modifying reflexive actions, it modifies one's behaviors. This can be accomplished by providing rewards for desired behaviors and punishing for undesired behaviors. The next concept is chaining. This is basically complex operant conditioning, in which the learner is able to string more than one previously learned stimulus response together, such as tying one's shoes or buttoning a shirt. The fourth conditioning is verbal association. This is when an individual creates associations using verbal connections, and this is the primary process in developing language. These 4 conditions are behavioral conditions. The 5th condition is called discrimination learning. This is when the learner is able to generate different responses to similar but systematically different stimuli. An example would be a doctor determining the cause of abdominal pain in a patient immediately following abdominal surgery. The doctor must differentiate the cause of pain between different possibilities such as gas, internal bleeding, incisional pain, or infection. The 6th condition is called concept learning. This is the learner's ability to make consistent responses to a class of stimuli. An example would be riding a motorcycle or a manual transmission car, both using a clutch, gear, and accelerator in the correct manner. The 7th condition is rule learning. This is the ability to learn relationships between 2 or more concepts and use them in situations that are both familiar and unfamiliar to the learner. The last condition is problem solving. This is the ability to apply previously learned rules and concepts to new situations that have never before been encountered. These 4 conditions are cognitive conditions. As with most ideas, there are good and bad aspects to this process. Among the positive aspects are that the process is set up in an easy-to-follow sequence of events, allowing an easier time of planning and conducting classes. Additionally, the tasks of this process are arranged in a logical order, again, making it easier to understand. The adaptability of the process is another plus. With minimal effort, it can be modified to fit multiple methods of teaching. Another set of modifications can also make the process usable with learners of different age groups and in different subject matter areas. On the other hand, there are several negative aspects to this process to consider. For one thing, most of the steps in the process require a lot of guided assistance. Also, when steps require critical thinking that can result in multiple answers, this can result in confusion in teaching or learning the steps. Most content exploration done via this process requires a lot of guidance and assistance, which can result in learners choosing not to explore various ways of problem solving on their own. Finally, some instructional designers consider this process to be boring and a much less challenging method of instruction for both teachers and students.